Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing the Bookish Drummer Tag. I was tagged by Andrew at Andrew Wizardly Reads. Andrew is amazing. His energy is honestly some of the best out there and I can't help but smile when I watch his videos. We also have very similar reading tastes, which is really cool. So I will tag Andrew's video down below and his channel, and I will also tag the original video down below as well because these prompts are absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, let's jump right in. The first prompt is name a book with a great build-up. So for this one, I picked Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I really liked the way that the book was set up. You have this kind of politician who is essentially tasked with sending his oldest daughter to marry this kind of king. And because she is his favorite daughter, he doesn't actually want to send her. So he ends up sending his youngest daughter, his second daughter, his youngest daughter. I think the premise is really interesting. And I really like the fact that we followed multiple POVs and the magic is really cool. And I don't know, I loved it. And Warbreaker to this day is still one of my favorite Brandon Sanderson books. And I can't wait for the second book to come out. So definitely Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. The next prompt is name a book that made you sad or depressed. So I picked two for this. I know I'm only supposed to pick one, but I picked two. The first one I picked was Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. I had serious book hangover after I finished this book because of the ending of Last Argument of Kings. I was heartbroken because A, because it ended, and B, because of what happened to a certain character, which if you've watched any of my First Law videos now, you'll know who is my favorite character. That ending just tore me to shreds, and I still don't think I've entirely forgiven Joe Abercrombie for that ending. It was amazing, but it tortured me for weeks after. The other one I picked was Emperor of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Oh, that book is intense. There is a scene in that book where I did not expect it, and I had to take 2 days to go back to it because it's really depressing and it's really sad. You know, I hated Jorg in the first book, and then learning what you learn in the third book, it doesn't justify his behavior, but you start to understand him a lot more, and it's honestly heartbreaking. And I was depressed. I was genuinely depressed, and it's the first time that I've ever had to take a break from reading a book. The next prompt is name a book that made you happy. So definitely Guards by Terry Pratchett. I laughed so hard when I read this book. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I loved it. I love Terry Pratchett's humor. I think it's amazing, and I think it's such a light as well. The time that I was reading it, I was also going through quite a lot of personal stuff, and it was just this beacon of light. And even though Pratchett tackles some really heavy themes in the books, he does it with humor, and I think he does it exceptionally well. Name a book that felt unique to you. So this book is so good. I don't feel like it gets talked about enough, and that is the New York trilogy by Paul Auster. It's such a unique book, the way that the story is told. It's essentially set up into 3 different sections. Each section has, it's kind of set around like a mystery, but each section is told in a very different way. The first section is told in a kind of third person narrative. The second and then the third sections are told, I don't even know how to explain it. It's very odd, and I didn't know that the book was structured in that way when I went into it, but I was totally there for it. And as a result, I need to read more Paul Auster because I really like his writing style, and I strongly recommend it. It's so unique. Name a book that got better as you read it. So for this one, I picked Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I really enjoyed Vicious and Villains, and I think Vicious is one of those books, there is a little bit of a slow start. It has multiple timelines, which took me a while to adjust. But as you get into the story, you really start to see how the 2 timelines connect and how they could start to connect. And then obviously at the end, you realize how everything kind of comes together. But I thought that book was really well done, and I think I rated it like 4.5 stars. And I really liked the kind of X-Men vibe that you got from it, the Magneto, Professor X dynamic. It was super good. I remember reading the end really quickly because I was just really hooked and I wanted to know what happened. Name a book that got worse as you read it. So I did a review of this book recently, and that is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. The beginning is really good. The first couple of chapters are really strong, and then it kind of melts into this hot mess. I will link down my review if you want to see more details about that. Name a book that dragged on or you couldn't get into. So I picked a book that dragged on, and that was Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider, don't know. I think the thing I've just realized is I don't really like YA fantasy anymore. I think I'm going to do a video on this about why I think my taste has changed. It just dragged on. I really liked the beginning. I was actually reading my review of it the other day and I really liked the beginning, and then it just totally fell apart for me. Didn't really like the character, didn't like the romance, didn't like the setting. It just felt like a slog, and I was really upset because in theory, it's a book that I should have loved. That failed epically. Name your favorite horror thriller book. So I don't read horrors or thrillers, to be honest with you. There's only one that I read, which is The One by John Mars, which I really liked the beginning of it, and then it got really crap. So, you know, I recommend it because it's a quick read, and I want to read more by John Mars because I know he's written a lot of thrillers, but I honestly don't have another book to put in this category because I just don't read thrillers or horrors, though I'm going to be changing that soon. Name a book with a pretty cover. So I picked 2 books. The first one is the UK editions of the Farseer trilogy. They're really stunning. They're really, really pretty. And I love the kind of like old parchment look that they are given. I also really like the UK editions of the First Law trilogy. Again, it has that kind of old look and it has like the map on the background. And I think they're stunning. They're some of my favorite editions. But to change it up a little bit, I've also thrown in Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palprito, which is a YA series. I do want to read it. I know I just said that YA is maybe not my thing anymore, but I've heard really good things about it and I'm willing to give it a go. And the cover is stunning. The colors are super vibrant, and I love the kind of phoenix on the front. Phoenixes are one of my favorite mythical creatures. So there you go. Name a book that resonated with you. Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Frederick Bachman, you know, I came across him last year. I read Anxious People in one sitting. I was completely hooked. And it is a book that is just about normal people doing stuff. And I really liked it. It really talks about the struggles that everybody faces in their everyday life. I don't know, there's a lot of themes in it that I think about a lot. And there's one character in it particular who actually has the same name as I do. It definitely threw up some questions to me about, you know, what I enjoy and what I appreciate in my life. And yeah, I don't know. It's a good book. It's a good book to read if you want to think, I think. Name a book with great pacing. Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. That book is so phenomenally paced. I was so taken aback by how good the pacing in that book is, because it's about a battle, which, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of battles. I like a good battle scene, but it has to be done in a very specific way. The whole premise of this book is that it's following a battle. So in theory, I should have not liked it that much. It's my second favorite Joe Abercrombie book that I've read thus far. It was amazing. The pacing was phenomenal, and Joe Abercrombie is phenomenal. And I'm going to stop talking about Joe Abercrombie now before we just keep rehashing the same stuff. Name a great SFF standalone. So for this one, I picked Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. I read Rendezvous with Rama earlier this year. It is really good. I was really surprised. It's kind of set on this planet, I guess, called Rama. And you essentially follow the team who land there and explore it. I could just imagine it being on a big screen and being really atmospheric. It's so good. I mean, it's the first Arthur C. Clarke book that I have read, and it's cemented him as a sci-fi author that I want to read more of. I actually bought another book of his recently, and I really enjoyed it. I really like the pacing. I like the fact that you were discovering this planet with the scientists. It's kind of got different POVs as well, and it was really well done. And I still don't really know what was going on with that ending, but I really enjoyed it. Name an SFF book with great battle scenes. Without a doubt, Wrath by John Gwynne. John Gwynne writes really good battle scenes. I really like them. I really like how he's able to keep them really well paced and keep the energy up and swap between different characters without making it feel like too much is going on or not enough is going on. You know, I think like the last third of Wrath is basically a huge battle scene, and I really enjoyed it. And I think he does a really, really strong job of creating battle scenes that don't feel, you know, laborious or overly lengthy. The penultimate prompt is name a book you're excited to read. So this is the first book in a series that I'm super excited to read, and that is The Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley. That is the first book in the Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne. I love the sound of The Empress Blades. I really want to get to it next year. I'm really going to try and prioritize it next year. They are pretty chunky books, the second and the third one. But I've heard really great things. I've watched a couple of interviews with Brian Staveley now, and he just seems like such a lovely human being. I'm really excited to read it. And I know he recently, or this year, he released another book, which is set after the events of the original trilogy. And I want to get into his world now, because I have a really strong feeling that I'm going to love it. And I also don't think he gets spoken about that much on BookTube. So definitely The Empress Blades by Brian Staveley. That was absolutely shocking. Okay. All right, let's start a band, tag some people. So I'm going to tag 3 lovely people. I'm going to tag Ariel from A Cup of Books. Ariel is a dear friend and her channel is fantastic. So Ariel, consider yourself tagged. The second person is Philip Chase. I adore Philip's videos and he's such a lovely human being, and we have pretty similar taste in books as well. He recently tagged me, so I wanted to tag him back, and I was thinking because I've got a couple of tags to film, and I was thinking which one I was going to tag him in. And I thought, you know what? If I was going to have a band, I want Philip Chase in my band. So Philip, consider yourself tagged. And then the third person is Alan from the Library of Alexandria. I would definitely want Alan in my band. So there you go. Alan, consider yourself tagged. That's it for today, folks. I hope you all had fun watching this video. Let me know if you would have answered any of these prompts differently. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Ciao.